The federal government has spent more than $500 billion on computers that just about run on hamster power. More video is made public of Planned Parenthood carving up and selling baby bodies. Billionaire Mark Cuban echoes what he must certainly have heard while listening to Real Truth. And, I hate to say I told you so, but President Obama is hinting at a third term. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com, and on Facebook, and on YouTube, and in the book Real Truth, Stay Angry. And of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC. Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number is 877-254-7524. Folks, welcome back to Real Truth. You know, one of the ways you know if you're smart or not is if you hear smart people saying the things that you say. To wit, from the Daily Caller. Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban made a second statement on 2016 presidential hopeful Donald Trump in 2 weeks on Monday. But this time, Cuban had much nicer things to say about his fellow billionaire. He said, quote, "Let's talk Donald Trump. I have to honestly say he's probably the best thing to happen to politics in a long, long time. I don't care what his actual positions are. I don't care if he says the wrong thing. He says what's on his mind. He gives honest answers rather than prepared answers. This is more important than anything any candidate has done in years." Unquote. My friends, I don't know Mark Cuban. I'm guessing he listens to the Real Truth radio show every day. If that's the case, Mark, how you doing? But here's a guy who's brilliant and a billionaire, just like me, except for the billionaire part. And he's saying precisely what I've been saying. We can talk about Trump's individual policies, but when it comes to defining the problems facing America, when it comes to the malaise that America is ensconced in, when it comes to the do-nothing government that we're saddled with, and when it comes to saying things that are true, even if they're not politically correct, Donald Trump is right on, and he is the only one, with the possible exception of Ted Cruz, the only one I've heard saying those things, and the only one I've seen doing those things. And if politics in America ever needed a departure, if we ever needed a radical, quote unquote, someone to come in and shake things up and depart from business as usual, it's now. And if it's Donald Trump, and if he's got so much money that he can't be bought by the special interests, then he could end up being a very, very good president. Time will tell. Item from liveactionnews.org. This morning, the Center for Medical Progress released an almost 12-minute documentary video that explores the market for aborted baby body parts. The footage shows the dissection of an 11-week aborted baby at a Colorado Planned Parenthood. The staff and potential parts buyer discussed the best way to provide compensation for harvesting and selling the organs and other body structures. Unquote. My friends, if you travel around parts of the world, most notably based on what I've seen, Asia, parts of Asia, if you want a cornea or a kidney or a pancreas or you name it, all you got to do is give someone some money. They'll go out and they'll find it for you. It may involve killing someone and taking that body part out of them in order to sell it to you, but that's okay because it's business, right? You got to make a living somehow, right? Wrong. It's an obscenity when they do it in Asia, in the third world, and it's more of an obscenity when we sit still for that kind of atrocity here in America. The more I hear about Planned Parenthood, the more I see that I've been right about Planned Parenthood all along. They have little, if anything, these days to do with the health of women and everything to do with cashing in. Item from the WashingtonExaminer.com. President Obama's team has spent more than $500 billion on information technology, but some departments, notably the IRS, still run on DOS and old Windows, which isn't even serviced anymore, according to House Chairman. Since President Obama's taken office, the federal government has spent in excess of $525 billion on IT. And it doesn't work, said Representative Jason Chaffetz, chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. In an address to the centrist Ripon Society, Chaffetz suggested that the slow change of the federal government's IT led to the recent and historic hack of personal data of millions of current and former federal employees, including CIA and other clandestine employees. Unquote. My friends, I've said it before, I will say it again. Government by its very nature is deaf, dumb, blind, bumbling, foolish, wasteful, inefficient. You take that to the nth degree, which is the United States government, and it's even more so. $500 billion on ancient computer equipment. You know, the buck stops at the president's office, and if he's allowing this to go on, then he should immediately resign, and I mean in the next 5 minutes. It's inexcusable, especially in a day and age like the one we're in, when the government finds itself drowning in a sea of red ink, to be pouring trillions of dollars down the drain in this day and age. It's more than inexcusable. If you ask me, it is a crime. Item from Breitbart: the Iran deal will provide Iran with a cash windfall as sanctions are eased and assets are unfrozen. The total amount is estimated to be as high as $150 billion. If so, the Iran deal would give more cash to Iran than the $124.3 billion the U.S. has given in total aid to Israel since 1948. Stop! Message to all the vermin out there on Facebook, all the Jew haters, all the anti-Semites who say, what? We give Israel $3 billion a year? As I tell them, that is the best money that America ever spends for a wide variety of reasons. But keep this in mind. Here's Iran, the #1 funding source for terrorism worldwide. And this deal gives them more money than the United States has given Israel in Israel's entire history. So, if you are one of those Jew haters on anti-Semites on Facebook, I suggest that you call up this article on Breitbart, print it up, fold it up, jam it where the sun don't shine, because all the noise you're making just shows you to be a hate-filled moron. It's Tuesday, and it's Real Truth. I'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Earth. How many times have you gone into a health food store and are confused as to the many different brands and prices on the same herbal supplements? You want to buy the cheapest, but you're afraid that quality is less, so you buy the most expensive. Truth is, the cheapest may be better. Green Earth herbal supplements are all manufactured in our Wheat Ridge, Colorado plant at 4565 Kidley Street, using the highest quality herb that we source from all over the world. Our 150 different herbal supplements are the most potent and safest in America. Our guarantee is your money back, no time limit, just return the bottle into your bowl, no questions asked. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name, Defense's Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. Now, this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. We, the people of the United States, and
Okay. Welcome back to Real Truth. Howard Riell behind the microphone, dispensing truth. The way Barack Obama dispenses free cell phones. Item. From freebeacon.com, President Obama told the African Union Tuesday he felt he had been a pretty good president, and if he were allowed to run for a third term, he'd probably be victorious. Stop. Come on, Riell, you're thinking. He's just speculating. He's just pontificating. He's bragging. He's saying if he wanted to be president again, he could win another election. Well, my friends, this is how politics works. You ever hear the expression floating a trial balloon? That's what he's doing. He's just putting it out there and pretending it doesn't mean anything. Now, it's true. You're right. Obama could continue to be president beyond his second term by signing an executive order, by signing a decree which would abolish elections until further notice. He could do that, but he knows he'd get an awful lot of static if he did that. So a much better way is to get people to say, hey, why not let him run a third time? If people want him, why shouldn't they have him? This is a trial balloon. And I'm one of those guys, I'll tell you the truth straight up. I love to say I told you so. And I told you so. He is looking for a third term as president. God help us. Given the fact that America absolutely despises Hillary Clinton, at least anybody with half a brain, it's becoming increasingly clear to the Democrats and to Obama that they may very well lose the next election. So they're thinking, go with your strength. People have voted for Obama not once but twice. Maybe they'll do it a third time. My friends, people have swallowed strychnine also. Run from anybody who wants a third term as president, especially if his name is Barack Hussein Obama. Item. From Stream.org, in a third undercover video released today exposing Planned Parenthood, shows how Dr. Savita Gindi, Vice President and Medical Director of Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains, discusses aborted babies, specifically the sale of fetal organs and tissues taken from aborted babies. Unquote. My friends, I've already talked about this. Why am I talking about it again? Because it's that much of an outrage. It's a crime against nature. It's a crime against mankind. It's a crime against God. It's devaluing the human being. It's making us chattel or cattle. It should not be allowed to stand. I'm not sure why anybody's funding Planned Parenthood, but that needs to be rethought. Item. From InfoWars, Michael Sonmore allows his wife, with whom he has children ages 3 and 6, to sleep with as many men as she likes because insisting upon monogamy is, quote, patriarchal oppression. In a piece from New York Magazine, Sonmore writes, quote, as I write this, my children are asleep in their room. Loretta Lynn is on the stereo, and my wife is out on a date with a man named Paolo. It's her second date this week, her fourth this month so far. If it goes like the other, she'll come home in the middle of the night, crawl into bed beside me, and tell me all about how she and Paolo had sex. I won't explode with anger or seethe with resentment. I'll tell her it's a hot story and I'm glad she had fun. It's hot because she's excited, and I'm glad because I'm a feminist. Unquote. I'm going to wait a moment so that can sink in. My friends, I had a discussion with my younger daughter last year about feminists and what feminism is. She said she's a feminist, and I said, well, congratulations, you're a few decades too late. And she said, huh? And I said there was a very real need for feminism in the 60s and the 70s, maybe even into the 80s. But since then, feminism has changed. It's now about carping, it's about hate, it's about resentment, it's about minutia. It's also about mental illness. Case in point. This guy who has a wife, they have a couple of kids, she slips into the bed in the middle of the night and talks about the guy she just had sex with. If this is feminism, no thank you. Item from the Daily Mail. Just hours after Hillary Clinton unveiled her presidential campaign's push to solve global warming through an aggressive carbon-cutting plan, she sauntered up the steps of a 19-seat private jet in Des Moines, Iowa. The aircraft, a Dassault Model Falcon 900B, burns 347 gallons of fuel per hour. Unlike all Dassault business jets, Hillary's ride was made in France. The Trump-esque transportation cost $5,850 per hour to rent, according to the website of Executive Flightways, the company that owns it. And she's used the same plane before, including on at least one trip for speeches that brought her $500,000 in fees, unquote. So, my friends, let's chart this out. Hillary Clinton is a hypocrite. She cons the American electorate by telling them that she's the candidate of the environment. Meanwhile, she is despoiling the environment at a far greater rate than you and I ever will. Why is she doing so? Because she wants power, she wants fame, she wants money, and she wants money. I said that twice. So she doesn't care about wrecking the environment as long as it puts money in her pocket. Do you begin to see now the kind of a spider that Hillary Clinton is? And if you haven't noticed it until now, you must not have been looking. Item from the Free Beacon. The number of illegal immigrants in the United States totaled 11.3 million in 2014, outnumbering the 9.6 million Americans who were unemployed in the same year, according to data from Pew Research Center and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, unquote. Lie! It's a lie. No, I don't mean the fact that there were more illegal immigrants in the United States than unemployed American citizens. I'm sure that's true. But the fact that the claim that there are only 11.3 million illegal immigrants in the United States is a lie. I have seen estimates which I feel confident are right, that the number of illegal immigrants in the United States exceeds 20 million. Some have said as many as 24 million. That sounds like a much more reasonable number than me. But let's say for a minute that this number is correct, just for the sake of argument, because I don't like to argue. More illegal immigrants than there are unemployed Americans, which means if we took that 11.3, those illegal immigrants, and we exported their asses back to the third world toilet from which they came, it means that we would have 100% employment. We'd have that 9.6 million Americans unemployed, now in jobs. Maybe not ideal jobs, maybe not the jobs of their dreams, maybe not the jobs they went to school for, but instead of 9.6 million people with no jobs, you would then have 9.6 million people with jobs. Does that make sense to anybody? Makes sense to me. Apparently it doesn't make sense to the whores and corrupt political hacks in Washington, D.C., who aren't doing anything to secure our border or jettison the illegals from within our borders. Item from CBSDFW.com, Dateline Dallas. For the second time this week, Dallas police are facing criticism for lack of response to 911 calls. Friday afternoon, a young woman says she waited for 3 hours for a patrol officer to meet her to make a report following a hit-and-run crash, unquote. My friends, people say I am critical of police. Well, I'm going to come to the defense of police. I'm going to come to the defense of the Dallas police force. Here's a woman who's in a hit-and-run crash. She called the police. It took 3 hours for them to respond to a 911 call. Now, the reason it's not the cops' fault, and I checked into this, is that all the police in Dallas were busy busting lemonade stands run by 5-year-old girls. In one case, one of the 5-year-olds got rowdy and had to be tased. Item from the Washington Examiner. This year's surge of illegal immigrant children and teens is continuing at last year's historic pace, with about 30,000 expected to reach the United States, according to humanitarian groups. The numbers are... Stop for a minute. My friends, if you're my age, you remember the big stink back in the 60s and the 70s and Ralph Nader and all the environmentalists back when environmentalists were needed and essential. You had factories with these big drainage pipes leading out into a river, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of gallons of sludge every day, toxic sludge, would enter the clean, otherwise pristine river and pollute it. It was deadly, it was obscene, it needed to be stopped, and in large measure, it has been stopped. What's happening here? 30,000 illegal immigrant children coming here is just like sludge pouring from a factory into an otherwise pristine river. What is the significant difference? It is pollution surging in and poisoning the United States of America. People don't know. People don't care. People care, but not that much. They care, but bottom line profits are more important. It's poison flowing freely into the body politic of the United States, into our society. The politician who will stop that will be elected endlessly and go down in history as someone who came to America's rescue. Is there such a person out there? I'm hoping there is. Item from Yahoo News. The Boy Scouts of America on Monday ended its blanket ban on gay adult leaders while allowing church-sponsored Boy Scout units to maintain the exclusion for religious reasons. The new policy, aimed at easing a controversy that's embroiled the Boy Scouts for years, takes effect immediately. The decision was approved by 79% of the organization's 80-member National Executive Board. Stop. My friends, hang on, I got a call. What's that? Okay. They're requesting that the Fox report to the hen house, please. Item from InfoWars, the third undercover expose video of Planned Parenthood. I did this already. No need beating it to death. Item from Reuters, a suicide bomber rammed a car loaded with explosives into a group of Libyan soldiers in central Benghazi on Tuesday, killing 3 and wounding 11 of them, a medic and a military source said. Suicide bombings have become frequent in the eastern port city, where forces loyal to the country's internationally recognized government have been clashing with Islamist fighters, part of chaos gripping the oil producer, unquote. My friends, I have it on good authority that the reason this individual rammed a car loaded with explosives into a group of Libyan soldiers in central Benghazi was because he objected to a video that had been placed on Facebook. Item from Wired, if you don't like to broadcast where you've been by checking in on social media, but still want to remember the places you visited, Google Maps can now help. The company announced this week that it will be rolling out a new feature called Your Timeline that lets users see the IRL places they visited arranged by day, month, and year. The timeline will allow you to revisit the exact path you may have taken on a lazy Sunday stroll, the stops you made on a trip to Rome, or the takeout restaurant you frequent after hitting the gym. If you use the Google Photos, the company compare your pictures to specific days, quote, to help resurface your memories, unquote. That photo of exceedingly delicious Italian gelato can remind you not only when you're in Rome, but where exactly. Stop. My friends, if you think for a minute that information won't be used by a variety of sources, from companies to the government to the police, you're sadly mistaken. The more of our privacy we give up, the less freedom we have. It's a real simple equation. Item from MSN, a former Waterloo Regional Police officer who was suspended with pay for 3 years sent an email to police thanking them for his continued salary while he sat at home, played golf, traveled, and took a course to become a firefighter. Quote, I'm very grateful and fortunate to have received such a nice gift from WRPS over the last 3 years. You've opened up other doors for me and have paid me to sit back and watch. What a dream come true, wrote Craig Markham in an email on March 27th addressed to the police services solicitor. Police Chief Brian Larkin presented the letter to members of the Region of Waterloo Police Services Board at a meeting last week. He, meaning Markham, mocks what's supposed to be a fair and judicial system, Larkin said. It sends a bad message to the community, unquote. Mr. Larkin, you bet your ass it does. We'll be back.
Providing reliable electrical power systems in the Rocky Mountain area since 1992. Our rely on the sun to help make you self-reliant for your power needs. Solar energy can be stable to fit any situation, from complete power independence to backup power for the short term. Our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom tailored capabilities as well as emergency lighting all the way to commercial scale power. Great Place Power is a full-service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom design systems, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to GreatPlainsSolar.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Earth. Well, it had to happen. The Colorado legalized marijuana. Most people thought the Green Earth was a marijuana dispensary. Also, it was legalized on January the 1st, 2014. The same day we opened our new location at 4565 Kipling Street, 1.5 blocks south of I-70. There are 83,000 cars a day passing in front of our new location on Kipling Street, and most of them thought we were a marijuana dispensary. So we changed the name of our retail store to New Genesis Health, but we kept the name of our Green Herb Supplements. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name, New Genesis Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Healthy Nature Show with Linda Phillips every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And of His fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son who is in the bosom of the Father, He has declared Him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the American News Network.
Just catching up on some work during commercials. What an industrious guy I am. Welcome back to Real Truth. I am Howard Riell, your neighborhood industrious guy, bringing you all the news that makes you squirm, it makes you uncomfortable. Hopefully it makes you get off the couch and start making our society better, because it needs it. Item. From the Free Thought Project Dateline, New York City. Video has surfaced of a New York City police lieutenant assaulting an 11-year-old girl on a Bronx street corner. The incident happened 6 months after Eric Garner's death, but is now being brought to light after a battle with the Corporation Council of the City of New York. In the video, the large male cop forced the girl against the wall, then grabs her around the neck and throws her to the pavement where he backcuffs her before leading her away. In a sworn statement, the police lieutenant lied about what happened, saying she, quote, "and I both slipped and fell to the ground." On the ground, she continued to flail her arms and thrash her body, preventing me from placing handcuffs on her. We continued to struggle until I was eventually able to place handcuffs on her, unquote. As we can see, and my friends, you can watch this video on YouTube just like I did, no one slipped to the ground and the girl was not flailing and thrashing. It is pure brutality. The assault appears to be another example of NYPD harassment in minority communities, perhaps motivated by racism, all too similar to the circumstances leading to Eric Garner's death. According to civil rights lawyer Bob Herbst, who is representing the family, the girl was simply an innocent bystander to a situation that could have been resolved peacefully, unquote. My friends, germane to this topic is an opinion piece that was just published this morning by John Whitehead at the Rutherford Institute. I will read it to you. I quote, "Trying to predict the outcome of any encounter with the police is a bit like playing Russian roulette. Most of the time you will emerge relatively unscathed, although decidedly poorer and less secure about your rights. But there's always the chance that an encounter will turn deadly. The odds weren't in Walter L. Scott's favor. Reportedly pulled over for a broken taillight, Scott, unarmed, ran away from the police officer who pursued and shot him from behind, first with a taser, then with a gun. Scott was struck 5 times, 3 times in the back, once in the upper buttocks, and once in the ear, with at least 1 bullet entering his heart. Samuel Dubose, also unarmed, was pulled over for a missing front license plate. He was reportedly shot in the head after a brief struggle, which his car began rolling forward. LeVar Jones was stopped for a seatbelt offense just as he was getting out of his car to enter a convenience store. Directed to show his license, Jones leaned into his car to get his wallet, only to be shot 4 times by the, quote, fearful officer. Jones was also unarmed. Bobby Knipe was pulled over for having an expired registration. When the 70-year-old reached into the back of his truck for his walking cane, the officer fired several shots at him, hitting him once in the abdomen. Dontrell Stevens was stopped, quote, for not bicycling properly, unquote. The officer pursuing him, quote, thought the way Stevens rode his bike was suspicious. He thought the way Stevens got off his bike was suspicious, unquote. 4 seconds later, Sheriff's Deputy Adams Lynn shot Stevens 4 times as he pulled out a black object from his waistband. The object was his cell phone. Stevens was unarmed. If there's any lesson to be learned from these quote-unquote routine traffic stops, it's that drivers should beware. At a time when police can do no wrong, at least in the eyes of the courts, police unions, and politicians dependent upon their votes, and a fear for officer safety is used to justify all manner of police misconduct, we the people are at a severe disadvantage. According to the Justice Department, the most common reason for a citizen to come into contact with the police is being a driver in a traffic stop. On average, 1 in 10 Americans gets pulled over by police. Black drivers are 31% more likely to be pulled over than white drivers, or about 23% more likely than Hispanic drivers. As the Washington Post concludes, quote, driving while black is indeed a measurable phenomenon. As Sandra Bland learned the hard way, the reason for a traffic stop no longer matters. Bland, who was pulled over for allegedly failing to use her turn signal, was arrested after refusing to comply with the police officer's order to extinguish her cigarette and exit her vehicle. The encounter escalated, with the officer threatening to, quote, light Bland up with his taser. 3 days later, Bland was found dead in her jail cell. You're doing all this for a failure to signal? Bland asked as she got out of her car after having been yelled at and threatened repeatedly. Had she only known, drivers have been pulled over for far less. Indeed, police officers have been given free range to pull anyone over for a variety of reasons. This approach to traffic stops, what I would call blank check policing, in which the police get to call all the shots, has resulted in drivers being stopped for windows that are too heavily tinted, for driving too fast, driving too slow, failing to maintain speed, following too closely, improper lane changes, distracted driving, screeching a car's tires, and leaving a parked car open for too long. Motorists can also be stopped by police for driving near a bar or on a road that has a large amount of drunk driving, for driving a certain make of car like a Mercedes, a Grand Prix, and Hummers, having anything dangling from the rear view mirror like air fresheners, handicap parking permits, troll transponders, or rosaries, and displaying pro-police bumper stickers. Incredibly, a federal appeals court actually ruled unanimously in 2014 that acne scars and driving with a stiff upright position are reasonable grounds for being pulled over. More recently, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that driving a vehicle that has a couple of air fresheners, rosaries, and pro-police bumper stickers at 2 miles an hour over the speed limit is suspicious, meriting a traffic stop. Unfortunately for drivers, not only have traffic stops become potentially deadly encounters, they've also turned into a profitable form of highway robbery for the police departments involved. As the Washington Post reports, quote, traffic stops for minor infractions such as speeding or equipment violations are increasingly used as a pretext for officers to seize cash from drivers, unquote. Relying on federal and state asset forfeiture laws, police set up stings on public roads that enable them to stop drivers for a variety of so-called suspicious behaviors, search their vehicles, and seize anything of value that could be suspected of being connected to criminal activity. Since 2001, police have seized $2.5 billion from people who were not charged with a crime and without a warrant being issued. My friends, I'm going to read that last sentence again because it's a doozy. Since 2001, police have seized $2.5 billion from people who were not charged with a crime and without a warrant being issued. In case after case, notes the Washington Post, quote, highway interdictors appear to follow a similar script. Police set up what amounted to rolling checkpoints on busy highways and pulled over motorists for minor violations such as following too closely or improper signaling. They quickly issued warnings or tickets. They studied drivers for signs of nervousness, including pulsing carotid arteries, clenched jaws, and perspiration. They also looked for supposed indicators of criminal activity, which can include such things as trash on the floor of a vehicle, abundant energy drinks, or air fresheners hanging from rear view mirrors. My friends, I'll stop there. Go to the Rutherford website, rutherford.org. Read it for yourself. Share it. Most of all, be very, 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 very careful when you're in your car and when cops are out of control. We'll be back. All right, guys, that's it for the Facebook version. I'm about to curtail this video.